most important question for us right now. Imagine what we can do if we recognize Somaliland, we create this great cooperation between Sweden and Somaliland, and we can, in different ways, try to create trade possibilities. We can expand the great values that we see in Somaliland. I mean, when it comes to democracies and civil liberties, especially to other countries, and show other countries that, you know, if you work on this, if you keep on protecting these fundamental values, then we will recognize you. Now, this was a bit long, and I could continue, but I think I should stop. Thank you.
No, thank you. You've answered perfectly, and you've actually answered some questions that I haven't asked already. But I will continue. What would you say? What would you say the difference between the perception that you or maybe the other people that are not aware of Somaliland they had about Somaliland and that you learned about Somaliland?
Um, it's hard to answer. I would say um, I think that I have the privilege to, since I've been involved in this issue for many years, I've gotten to know a lot of good people, especially, I mean, the Somaliland mission here in Sweden. It's terrific. It's great. They're doing a great job trying to promote Somaliland in different ways and try to explain what's going on in the region. And I think that the big difference is that I was interested in this issue very early, and I started to get to know people who talked about this. I think the main key to make people understand what's going on is to actually just talk to them. People who come from Somaliland should talk to people who aren't from Somaliland, and in Sweden in general, people just look at people from Somalia as people from Somalia. Somalilanders are included in this group because people don't understand that Somalia is quite diverse, and I think we just need to let people know about this and the success story that we see in Somaliland. I mean, I mentioned earlier that we were the first party after my proposal. We were the first party in Sweden to work for this. Today, the Christian Democrats, another party in the Swedish parliament, is also proposing this. And then we have positive tendencies, especially from the liberals and MPs from the moderate party, which is the party that our prime minister belongs to. So each four of these parties that we belong to the governing coalition. Um, so I think that we have at least 3 years. If we can make a huge change during these 3 years until the next election, then I think more people will open their eyes. And I think this is the time when we should really take the advantage to actually propose new relationships in different ways. I think we should try to promote business ideas. I've raised in motions in the Swedish parliament to open a trade office in Somaliland and to move our embassy from Kenya to Somaliland, and then let that embassy handle both Somaliland and Somalia, so we can move it to Hargeisa. I think that would be that would help this cause. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you again, Honorable MB. I think I would like to know also what is the reaction and the opinion of your constituents? Do your constituents identify with Somaliland?
Well, to be honest, most of my voters don't really know about Somaliland, and I'm doing my best to teach them. So this is simply a question about what is right and what is wrong, and there are few questions or a few topics within politics that are so simple to answer, and whether the answer is so simple to make, yes or no. And of course, this is one of the great examples. So therefore, I think it's more of a question about morality. We're not going to gain any voters to raise this, but I think it's the right thing to do. And I think I joined politics to make a better world and create um, to make things better for people, not only in Sweden but across the world or all over the world. And this is one of the perfect examples where you could actually do it. Maybe some of our voters like it, but I don't think that's not the main reason why I'm involved in this issue.
Thank you again. My last question from me, which I think you already did answer it, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Do you see any alignment between Somaliland and the Swedish principles and values, hence like democracy, freedom of speech?
Yes, I do. Quite a lot, actually. Especially, I mean, in the Horn of Africa, it's very hard to see similarities in many fields, but Somaliland is the main exception. Like I said, Somaliland belongs to the Western world just thanks to the fundamental rights, the fundamental freedoms that you have in Somaliland. Um, there are differences, but I think that if you're going to find one place, one country in the Horn of Africa that is the most similar to Sweden, I think it's Somaliland. And then, of course, the diaspora in Sweden is huge. It's the second largest in the world in Sweden. So only the UK has a larger Somaliland diaspora. Um, I think this by itself shows that there's great potential to create close um, cooperation.
Perfect. Thank you. Shamake, back to you.
Thank you very much, Nasir. Thank you very much, Marcus. So I'm going to push you a little bit here when it comes to the Sweden Democrats' position on Somaliland. What do you think it will take to push the Sweden Democrats and also Sweden itself past that finish line to re-recognize Somaliland?
Well, the Sweden Democrats doesn't have to do anything because it's already our policy, and we belong to the governing coalition, but we're not part of the government. So we have a close cooperation with the three parties that are in government. Therefore, it's a moderate party that sort of owns the foreign policy today in Sweden, and the moderate party has a bit different approach on this topic. So what we're trying to do is to push them, to influence them when we are um, doing our talks with the governing coalition. And I think that's a big issue right now. I've talked to our chief negotiator, and he also thinks this is a very important topic. So therefore, I think if we're gonna join together with the other two parties, and like I said, the Christian Democrats in Sweden, they have the same opinion as we do. The liberals are very close, so I think we just need to push the moderates to take this one decision. So as you've heard in Sweden, it's a right-wing parties that are pro-Somaliland. And I think it has to do with the potential actually that we see, and we're very pro democracy, all of us. And I'm not saying that the left wing parties aren't, but you can clearly see a difference.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Marcus. So the next segment of questions, what I want to do is focus us towards Europe. Also knowing your portfolio that you hold in the EU and PACE, as I mentioned earlier as well. So the first question in this segment is, the EU has been, some would say, one of the biggest voices in claiming to support Somalia's sovereignty and national sort of territorial integrity, or at least giving lip service to it. Why do you think this is? And do you believe that some countries in the EU may be pushing their own agenda in supporting Somalia, within the EU?
It might be so. Actually, to be honest, I can't really answer this. But I think if I'm just gonna make a guess, I think it has to do with the fear to interfere in other countries' boundaries, and then what is recognized by the United Nations, which is often the main sort of way for various countries to know who to recognize and who not to recognize. I think after this memorandum of understanding and after Ethiopia's recognition, I think we're going to see a change, especially among, of course, African countries, but then perhaps also European countries. I hope that the UK will be the first country in Europe to do so. Of course, no one would be happier than me if Sweden was the first, but I think the UK will be before Sweden, due to Sweden or to the historic reference. If you look at Sweden, because Sweden hardly ever do such things as the first country. So I think that we should try to influence other countries, especially the UK, as much as we can, and show them that this is the right thing to do, and then also show them that this union, since it wasn't ratified, it's not legal. It's not actually. It's not okay to say that this is the right or that this union even exists, because it doesn't. If you look at it strictly um, from a law perspective.
No, thank you very much for that holistic answer, and you did answer it. And I totally agree with you. And I think the bureaucratic machine that is the EU, will take some time to catch up with the times. But I do agree that it will most likely follow. We've heard from a number of countries, including the UK and America, who have historically made their position clear, where they said actually what we want is an African country, ideally one of your neighbours, to recognise you first, and we'll follow shortly after. So we do hope that the UK, especially with the increasing momentum in British politicians and actually personalities across the spectrum within the UK and across all political parties within the UK, having very strong support for Somaliland and its case, mainly based on exactly what you said, which is actually what a number of people fail to understand, that the union was never legally ratified, that thus never actually existed, thus making it an occupation or an annexation. And I think the next question that I had was, no, it's a bit similar. Knowing that the EU is a membership body and obviously will not necessarily take these steps to recognise Somaliland, what would you say Somaliland can do more of, in the corridors of Brussels, trying to push its case and enhance relationships between the EU and Somaliland?
Just to talk to the right people, to take some time to show them the positive things about Somaliland and the potential. Just simply give them each point why it's important to close up the relationship between Somaliland and the West, especially, but also what makes this important for the entire region. If some people, some Somalilanders would just take the time to talk with the right people, I think things would solve itself. But yeah, simple lobbying, I would say.
No, thank you. I totally agree. Before I move our focus to Africa and East Africa and the memorandum of understanding between Somaliland and Ethiopia, what I wanted to ask was that with coming back to Sweden, I know you said that Sweden obviously doesn't have that historical, position of taking the first steps. But have you heard any sentiments from other European countries apart from the UK, or it doesn't have to be necessarily based on insider knowledge? But what would you think the position is amongst other European countries?
Sadly, I would say that the interest isn't good enough for other European countries to take the first step just yet. perhaps and hopefully this will change. But I do know that there are lots of MPs, at least conservative MPs, who are um, positive towards this idea, since I've talked to them myself, and I raise it every once in a while when I meet with my party colleagues in the Council of Europe. And since I do hold the position as Vice President of the Council of Europe, and by this I hope to, I haven't had this chance so far, but I hope to influence the Council of Europe as an assembly to welcome Somaliland, some delegation from Somaliland, to actually meet with politicians. I think this would be a great idea. I've done that before with other people who have other interests, and I think this could be a start. But sadly, I haven't really had the time so far.
Thank you. And actually, this brings to question some analysts and some commentators have actually said to Somalilanders and Somaliland, they believe Somaliland is too nice. They believe Somaliland, whenever America comes knocking or the world comes knocking, Somaliland's very quick and eager to do as is told. I'm not saying Somaliland should be, a disruptor in the region. But do you believe sometimes, that label of Africa's best kept secret actually works against Somaliland?
I'm sorry, I lost you there. I just got a call.
No problem. I was just saying that some commentators and some analysts have actually told Somaliland and Somalilanders that Somaliland is somewhat sometimes too nice. When the West comes knocking, the likes of America, Somaliland says, what can we do? And very quickly pleases the West. Um, do you agree? I'm not saying that Somaliland should become a disruptor or a negative force in the region, but do you think that the label of Africa's best kept secret has actually somewhat worked against Somaliland, or do you think that that label is precisely where the momentum is coming from now?
It's hard to answer really. I hope not actually. I think that Somaliland, since Somaliland is a perfect example in many ways, I think this has only helped Somaliland. Um, and it has opened the eyes of not only me but lots of other politicians in Sweden. Um, so in the Swedish Parliament, we do have a friendship group between Sweden and Somaliland. I'm the deputy chair, and the chairperson is comes from the Christian Democrats, and we have members from each of the governing four parties today. So what we've seen is that what each and every one of us are trying to raise is that Somaliland is a good country, and Somaliland and the people of Somaliland are in many ways similar to us. So therefore, I think this is just a good example, and I think it works favorable to Somaliland.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So, as promised, coming to Africa and East Africa in particular, I had a few questions regarding the MOU Somaliland signed with Ethiopia on the 1st of January 2024, which sees the deepening of relationships between two fellow African countries, where Somaliland will provide Ethiopia with access to the sea, leasing a naval base to Ethiopia for 50 years, along with Ethiopia's commitment to utilize the Berbera corridor, as well as a reported exchange of shares in Ethiopian Airlines. This will also be accompanied by, as you mentioned, Ethiopia being the first country to re-recognize Somaliland. This, in my opinion, will set an example for Africa, as it will demonstrate how African countries can work together through political and economic integration to agree deals which are mutually beneficial and actually based on a win-win principle. So my first question would be, what are your initial views and observations of the MOU?
Well, my first thought was that this is great, um, and I hope that it is great. I think that this will open up possibilities not only for Somaliland and Ethiopia, but for all of East Africa. And I really think that this could also make other countries understand what possibilities we have when we work together with like-minded partners like Somaliland, and when we actually recognize this region for what it is. And the trade possibilities and the that could open up, it will serve to help lots of people to create their dreams. So I'm to be honest, I'm 100% positive. But of course, there's always a risk when you lend um, this piece of land to a country that isn't democratic and such. But I hope and I do believe that this is a good deal.
Thank you very much, Marcus. And I think to follow up with, do you believe that examples such as this, where Africans can come up with solutions to their own problems, should actually be welcomed? I guess it's in the context of institutions like the EU, which I mentioned earlier, and the United Nations, somewhat standing in the way of this, historic deal. I must add, though, that actually the United Nations Security Council and even the European Union have left Somalia itself disappointed because they have not actually supported Somalia in the way that Somalia wanted them to. But nevertheless, do you think that African-led solutions should be promoted and should be the way forward?
I think so, and I think especially that when you have great ideas to promote civil liberties and democracy, I think all a way to get things through. And I think it's especially important in this region.
Fantastic. My next and kind of final question, I've got a couple of follow-ups as well, is do you think that this deal, which sees Somaliland and Ethiopia deepen their kind of economic and political integration as discussed, will contribute to peace and stability in the region? Because as we know, the situation in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden is extremely volatile at the moment, with the Houthis on the one side and pirates from Somalia on the other. So my question is, do you think that this deal can potentially result or actually help result in producing lasting peace in these important waters in the region?
I do think so, and I hope so, but I can't be sure since, well, what we saw with what Somalia did with Turkey, of course, it's worrying, but I don't think Turkey has an interest in getting involved in something that they don't have to be involved in, especially since the situation in general around the world right now is quite tense. I don't think they will. So I really hope that this will increase the peace and make it more stable.
Thank you. And we've seen since the 1st of January when this MOU was signed, we've seen the alignment of the government of Somalia with elements of Al Shabaab, especially in the rhetoric and beliefs being pushed. So they talk about instability and pushing instability in the region. They've been calling for religious wars against Somaliland and Ethiopia in their parliament. And we see key members of Al Shabaab now within the government of Somalia, such as Minister Mukhtar Robo. We see the director of NISA, Mahad Salad. We see Minister Fiqi, who's actually been, written up in reports in America. Do you think that Somalia is an honest partner to the international community in the fight against global terrorism? And just to add, the reason why I asked this question is because Somalia has been trying to frame the MOU in a light of saying if this MOU is signed, then actually it will fuel Al-Shabaab. But my question is actually, is Somalia so deep in bed with Al-Shabaab itself that this is a non-starter or a non-question? What are your views, Marcus?
Yeah, I think Somalia, they don't even have control of their own country, and they far from any control. I don't think they have anything to say about this, first of all, and then of course they should keep to their own problems and handle their own problems before trying to influence in a negative way the issues of Somaliland and Ethiopia. So I don't think they have. I mean, they should deal with their terrorists. They should deal with their internal problems. Once they're stable, they can talk, but they shouldn't talk right now.
No, I 100% agree, and I think it's sad to see the saber rattling. It's sad to see the hate speech, the inflammatory language used, which will ultimately actually just push more violence and instability in the region. But I agree with you, and I agree with many other commentators and analysts who've actually mentioned and spoken about how this way that Somalia is framing the MOU will not stick, because actually Somaliland has been an actor, a positive actor for peace in the region, with zero piracy of its coasts and shores, with no Al-Shabaab infiltration, Somaliland being able to effectively police its country. So thank you very much for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open the floor to questions, but before I do that, I'm going to give it to Nasser for any follow-up questions he might have. But please do request the mic if you had any questions. But before I do that, Nasser, over to you.
No, it's regarding the hateful comments that are coming out of Somalians, and you've seen what the president has been doing. And as of the Somalians in the diaspora, like the Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and the things that they do. So my question for Marcus is, what would your advice be for the Somaliland diaspora to do more for their respective country to be aware of the case of Somaliland?
I think that Somalilanders are doing a great job today, and like I said, the diplomatic mission in Sweden, they're terrific. They're doing a great. I think they're doing often being great ambassadors, and like it's hard for some people, of course, when you receive threats. When it comes to me, if I receive threats from Somalians, then I'll work even harder for my cause, because that's the way I work. No one should tell me what to do or what not to do. And then, of course, all the support that I receive from Somalilanders, it's amazing. So just keep on being good people. Show your best side. I think that's the best way of handling things.
Isn't it funny that Somalians always assume when someone speak about the case of Somaliland or support Somaliland that somehow Somaliland is paying off that person? Doesn't that reflect on their values, that in reality they are the one that do that pay different people and different organizations to lie about Somaliland?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they speak for themselves, and they couldn't be clearer on what they stand for.
Back to you, Shamak.
Thank you very much. Marcus, just before I give it to Abdurrahman to ask the first question from the floor, there was a very, very sad case recently where a Somalilander who worked for the aviation agency in Somalia was brutally assassinated, and we saw the comments from Somaliland around the autopsy report. I think it was yesterday. This person I'm referring to is Abdel Nasser Musa Dahable. He's a Chevening scholar, a graduate who studied in the United Kingdom. His wife is a doctor in the United Kingdom. He has ties to Europe. So what I wanted to do was just raise this case with you, because actually what we're seeing at the moment is a trend of assassinations of Somalilanders in Somalia and Mogadishu specifically at this point. And I know you're aware of the Isaq genocide and the inhumane atrocities committed then under the genocidal regime. But what we are seeing today is a continuation, or an attempt at least, of the continuation of that genocide. And obviously, knowing your membership of PACE and your influence in Sweden, I'm hoping that you will also, as an ally of Somaliland, will pick up that case as well. I don't expect you to comment on it at this point, unless you're aware of it. But I just wanted to raise that with you at this point before we open up for questions.
Yes, thank you. I've read about it. I haven't really gotten into detail, so I don't know much about it, but I will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the first question is from Abdurrahman. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to both the UK Alliance and Marcus. Thank you for your time. The question I had is your engagement with Somaliland. Somaliland has had a lot of election observers from a lot of Western countries. I had a question to you, Marcus, in terms of, have you been to Somaliland? Have you observed the elections, and have you seen how they work? And what's your takeaway from that?
Sadly, I haven't been there yet. I've received many invitations, and I would love to go in the future. But sadly, I haven't had the possibility so far. But what I've heard is that the election has gone very well. I actually do have a friend. He's actually belongs to the left party in Sweden, so he's in many ways complete opposite from me. But he went there, and he had a great experience. Or that's at least what he said. He said that it seemed to work very well. But I look forward to sometime go there myself as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Abdurrahman. Thank you very much, Marcus. Just a follow-up question from myself. But before I do that, if anyone has any questions, please do come and request the mic and come and ask your question, and don't miss this opportunity. Marcus, I know you mentioned, the legal nature of Somaliland's case pertaining to the illegal, unratified so-called union of the 1960s, which you mentioned earlier. Do you think that there is opportunity to take this to not only the ICJ, but would there be a possibility to take it to the European Court of Human Rights and other instruments, or within the EU itself? Do you think that that is actually an avenue which Somaliland can take?
I don't think it's possible today, but perhaps in a few years when more countries are raising this issue, and especially when there are countries out there who recognize Somaliland. But I don't think it's possible yet, sadly.
Thank you very much for that. I think I think I respectfully disagree, not necessarily with the European side of things, but just with the ICJ and actually taking it to court. But I do know that some counsel received also sort of would support that. But I do agree in terms of the political sentiments, and actually it being a lot easier when you have many more allies in the international sort of arena. So I do take that point. So thank you very much for that. We have Landa who's just joined us. Landa, take it away.
Hi, hello to everyone. Thank you, UK Somaliland Alliance, for providing us with this opportunity. Marcus, hello. Thank you so much for being here. It's been very interesting listening to you. My question is, Somaliland is it's not similar, but it's kind of similar, to be honest. It's not exactly the same, but it's kind of similar. Although our union was not ratified, and as Sharmarke has stated, it was more of an illegal occupation, a military occupation and annexation, rather than a union. But even if it would have been, as the union between Sweden and Norway, if that was allowed to be let go of, and we can see what a success story, what Norway is today and what Sweden is today, why is it, do you think, that Somaliland is the only one that's kept to a higher standard rather than the rest of the world, when we in Africa, we know about the union between Syria and Egypt and this Gambia and Senegal. Why is Somaliland kept a hostage for a union that was not even legal? And also after suffering a genocide, and we know the international rule about genocide also, that now the European Union, including Sweden, hold Somalilanders, the genocide victims of Somaliland, hostage to the same genocide years that has took away all these lives. And we know that breaks every rule in the international law and the Genocide Convention, which most European countries, including Sweden, are a signatory to. So my question is, why are we held hostage, and why do you think we are held to a different standard, as if we are angels and we're supposed to suffer for everyone else's whims? Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much for the question. I think the answer to change this, because I don't know why it's so hard for various countries to take the right decision in this case. But I think the answer is to change first the perception from the African Union, but then change the view from the United Nations, because big parts of the Western world look at the United Nations. What does the United Nations say? And currently they have the view that Somalia is one country, which includes Somaliland, even though it's wrong. That's their definition of Somalia today. So if we could change that, it would make a huge difference, I would say.
Just to follow up with that, regarding the recent MOU between Somaliland and Ethiopia, and considering that Ethiopia is one of the founding fathers of the African Union, and we know the influence that it has on the African Union, don't you think that the recent MOU will change that perspective?
I hope so. And I think that if more countries follow Ethiopia, then it will solve itself eventually. Of course, it will take time for the United Nations to make a decision, but I think it could help quite a lot, actually.
Back to you, Shamak.
Yeah, thank you very much, Landa. Thank you very much, Nasser and Marcus. I'm going to give it to Egal. Egal is actually in Somaliland, so speaking from within Somaliland. Egal, take it away. Thank you, brother.
And assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh for everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So I just say, two questions only with Marcus, the MP. So, okay, the first question is, do you make the similar step that we open in a motion about in a parliament, Sweden parliament, talking about the recognition of Somaliland, that's similar with the Gavin Williams that already opening in parliament to the UK? That's my first question. And the second is, okay, the Swedish government could help in the Somaliland to bring in its case with the international case. That being is a good progress that they're making in Somaliland to show loudly its case, and only to becoming the member of all of the ICJ UN membership. So, do you agree? Is this question is Somaliland for good?
I'm sorry, I lost you there at the end. Could you restate the second question?
I think you get it. My questions.
No, I got disturbed by a call again. I don't know how to sort of get rid of that.
Okay. I will repeat it, inshallah. The first question is, do you opening in the Swedish parliament the motion about recognition of Somaliland, just similar to Gavin Williams his state? That is my first question. The second is, do you bring in to away from the international code the Somaliland case to helping them Somaliland to show war loudly what they want? That's my second question.
Yes, I do. I raise it all the time in various international forums, especially in the Council of Europe. And when it comes to the Swedish Parliament, where the motion, I table a motion every year, and I expand it every year as well. So the Parliament has to deal with it and discuss it. In fact, I think we will have the next parliamentary dealing with this. I think later in March. Um, so we do open it all the time. But of course, I'll have to table the motions every year. And then, of course, we do have negotiations within the governing parties on what we can do. And I think I'm not involved in all of them, but I do try to influence our negotiators whenever they are to talk to their counterparts in other parties.
Thank you very much, Agal. Thank you very much, Marcus. Marcus, just to follow on from that, in the UK, what we've seen recently is actually more and more traction amongst big media houses here in the UK. Do you? Is there any more we can do in Sweden to get similar traction with journalists and media houses? I know that actually today, at least one big name from sort of kind of Sweden's journalist community has joined this space. But do you think we can do more there?
Yes, use your connections and use the people who are active within the media landscape. Try to get more to talk about this. I think a lot of Swedes would be interested.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think that's actually very important because what we've seen is actually over since the MOU was signed in the 1st of January, many more times Somaliland has been searched. I think it was 10x at the beginning, and I know the multiplier has been growing ever since of people searching Somaliland on the internet. And it's actually been searched more than it ever has in its history by a multiple of 10 plus, as I've mentioned. So I think now is the opportunity for every Somalilander and every ally for Somaliland in this space to actually push that message with any contacts they have, any connections they have. But also actually something I found pretty effective myself is just reaching out to these journalists. At the end of the day, they're humans themselves. They want a good story. Somaliland is a good story. And more often than not, they actually do engage and do respond. So don't shy away. Don't be scared. Don't, feel intimidated. Feel free to reach out. And you know how it works. I'm sure most of you, access, journals or newspapers in your respective countries. Just frame it for them in a way that they can't reject. And what I will do is I'll give it to Ahmed, World Nomad, and then I'll give it to Mawa.
Hi there. I'd like to think you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi, Marcus. Firstly, congrats on clearing the obstacles to NATO admission. As we know, Sweden historically and in present day has benefited from access to the sea and vital sea lanes in a safe manner for commercial and naval purposes, and this admission will only bolster that. Another vital sea lane is the Red Sea, and at present, research from the British Chamber of Council showed that 55% of UK exporters have been impacted by shipping in that area, particularly affecting manufacturers, retailers, and wholesalers. So my first question is, has Sweden been impacted by the danger in the Red Sea? And in general, we also know that the area has been plagued with piracy due to no fault of Somaliland. But this recent MOU could allow Ethiopia and Somaliland to act in the region to help stabilize that, whilst the Houthi issue highlights a wider region and need for cooperation. So with this new information, do you think the party in charge of foreign affairs would consider the Somaliland case in a different light? I think we've already established that Sweden won't be the first, but there could be, we're in a different world to where we were, let's say, in December of last year. Do you think there could be some subtle shifts? That's my question, if you heard me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the question. I just have to say for everyone here that my cell phone is low on battery and I'm in the car because I've been away. So if I don't know how long this will last, but just to let you know, um, I think that uh, it has probably impacted Sweden. I think it has impacted big parts of the world, and I think this is a very uh, I mean, it's a very important route, and we're dealing with terrorists who are ruthless. They don't care about anyone, and of course, they have connections with various parts of the world. And in Sweden, we have three main countries that are looked at as threats: Russia, Iran, and China. And Iran, of course, they are quite involved in the Red Sea piracy and the what's going on in the Red Sea.
Thank you very much for that, Marcus. And we heard you loud and clear. If it does go off, then that's fine as well. We've just got a few more questions before we wrap up. I will now pass over to Mawa.
Thank you, Sharmaka. Hi, everyone. Hi, Marcus. Thank you for the space, guys. Mine is a really a quick question, really. I think I heard you say that Sweden has the second largest Somaliland community, which is I don't know if the people in the space knew that, but it's quite news to me. I didn't know that there was such a large community there. Also, because we also never see any kind of activism on the ground from Sweden. So I just wondered, what advice would you give to Somalilanders in Sweden to become more engaged and really make themselves be visible and do some organizing and groundwork, lobbying their representatives? How is that structure of doing that different to the way that we do in UK? What would your local advice be to Somalilanders in Sweden? And my second question is, and apologies if I was in and out of the space. Apologies if you already covered this or covered it in your answers. But since the announcement of the MOU, I just wondered what the feedback is in within government, within decision makers in the country. How are they viewing this? What temperature check on that? Like, how are they discussing that MOU, and what is their view on what's happening, all the discussions and all the sort of activism that's coming out from the Horn? I don't know if you can hear me clearly, guys.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Marcus, are you still with us? I'm not sure if Marcus has dropped off, but we had two fantastic questions there. Maybe Marcus got a phone call, so we'll give it a couple of minutes and wait because he's still in the space. So hopefully he'll rejoin us. But no, fantastic questions. A little bit of a dig at Somalilanders in Sweden. For those of you Somalilanders in Sweden, if you are doing more and want to, highlight it, please do, come up and pick up the mic and let us know.
Sorry to jump in there. I think Marcus have mentioned that already, and I think he said that they are doing a fantastic job, and he's really proud of the work that they do. So I think there's more of us that need to get in contact with them and make sure that we tell them the feedback we're getting.
No, agreed. And I think because it's the social media age as well, and the media age, I think we can do a bit more in terms of publicizing it so that actually can reach as many people as possible. Ladies and gents, unfortunately, Marcus has dropped off. What we can do is maybe keep the space open for 5 or 10 minutes to let people have their say, the people that still had something to say. And then we can wrap up without Marcus, unfortunately. So sorry for those of you who haven't been able to ask your question directly to Marcus. So, Lean Man, I know you were first and you had a question for Marcus. Do you want to reframe it as a point?
Yeah, Shamarka, I messaged you, and I wanted you to ask him really because you worded it so eloquently. But it's like we speak a lot about raising awareness of Somaliland, and it really should be a situation of the annexation of Somaliland that qualified for statehood, that was a country. And the question really was, how is it possible that our UN seat, another country sits on it when we have proof there was no union and it is annexation? Like, this is illegal. And how in this Western world is this possible? You know, we even if you look back at the documentations from the 60s where it said Somalia did not qualify for statehood, they do not know how to run a country, and they have proved it, they don't know how to run a country. And there we are, just being a country like it's a miracle, you know, best kept secret, but really it's because we've always been our own government, you know, and we're annexed by people that don't know how to run a country. So that was really the question. Obviously, he's not here now. Like, how is it possible that something so illegal can happen? We had the African fact-finding mission, African Union, and they said there is no ratification. From what I know personally, we have our own parliament in the 60s, and it has to go through parliament, and they just created their own documents in Mogadishu and stole our sea and put their name on it. Like that, like being that illegal and criminal, how is that possible? And we have to prove that we are a country and raise awareness. No, we need to scream to everyone we're annexed and they're sitting on our seat. So, you know, I did have a question about that. How is that possible? You know, African, you know.
Thank you very much, Lima. And I felt it was a very, very good question. And actually, the context you added, talking about me being so eloquent, you very eloquently put it, where you actually mentioned that Somaliland is not a young country. Some people say Somaliland is a young country and, you know, it's a new democracy. But actually, we're an ancient civilization. We're an ancient country in different forms who are now, you know, the Republic of Somaliland. So we should always remember that and always push that message as well. No matter who says it, whether it's internal or external, Somaliland is not new. We've been here for a very long time, but unfortunately, the way the media portrays it and the way that, you know, Somalia has been able to utilize the media has changed that narrative and spread fake news, fake narrative. So thank you very much for that, guys.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, even we have paperwork when the British came that said they was running their country very well. They had a very beautiful country, good economy. So we know we've always run our country. So it's like, you know, these people did not qualify for statehood, and they proved it. It's like, it's not like they went off and made this amazing country. They are proving it to the world. They did not and do not qualify for statehood. So what made them a state? Sitting on our UNC. So I just want, you know, next time he's here, ask him that. How is that possible?
Thank you very much, Nima, and we'll definitely will do that. And just to mention as well, it wasn't just when the British were there. I know that's not what you meant, but actually the reason why we were able to do it and demonstrate it when the British was there is because we have a historical track record, a long, very long historical track record of successfully managing our own internal and external affairs. But thank you very much for that. And guys, unfortunately, we're not going to take any new speakers, but what we're going to do is we're going to allow Mubarak to speak as well and have the final word. Any final comments, Mubarak?
Assalamu alaikum, Sharmaki. Thank you very much, both Nasir and Sharmaki, UK Somaliland Alliance. I know Mark is not there, but just to respond to the last person about the Somaliland community in Sweden, actually being one of them, and actually reside there since 1991, although I'm from UK now. I live here for the past 15 years or so. There is a very large community, Somaliland, and we were actually from the beginning. I mean, we had a good relationship with the government, because I think that's when the war broke out and there was brutalizing, destroying Somaliland, the Somalia state, the failed state. So we had this relationship where we set up a community for our own Somalilanders, places to come and meet. We also have like time for the special TVs and radios, I remember. So there is a very large community in Somaliland, and we even, although we live here now, we're still connected to the embassy. So we are like time to time gather and then write letters for the Sweden government support to Somaliland. So we, I don't know who we were, but we have still that relationship. And I think because of that, that's how they still connected to us. So just to confirm that, very large community, and start from the beginning, very early 88, 89, 90, myself 91 as a kid. So yes, I can assure you that very large community, and we still engage with them through the embassy, through the various member of parliaments. That is, I still know it as well. So we send letters from time to time to keep the support for Somaliland, and they're actually doing that. So just to say that to you guys, thank you very much, Shabaka.
Thank you very much, Mubarak. I think Mubarak, I weaponized very innocent comments and framed it in a completely different way. So thank you very much for highlighting that and actually making it very clear. And we stand by our fellow, Somalilanders in Sweden, our fellow Somalilanders in France, the rest of the Europe, and the rest of the world as well. Nasser, did you have any closing remarks you wanted to make before we end the space?
No, not really. I just want to thank Marcus for coming up and giving us time of his day, busy schedule. And I also want to thank the UK Somaliland Alliance and everyone that was here today, everyone that asked the question, everyone that sent through the questions. I just want to say thank you all. And again, Mubarak, I think Marcus, mentioned that very perfectly when he said that they are doing a great job. So I just wanted to reiterate that and just want to say well done and keep up the good work. And we all need to be more active than ever in nowadays. So yeah, Shamake, back to you. I see Moa is raising her hand.
Yeah, Moa, go for it, and then I'll wrap up.
I just wanted to give an apology to Hair Sweden. It wasn't meant an insulted comment. I've never known that fact that there was such a large Somaliland community. So I should have probably started off with that makes me happy. It's good to know. And also just generally, like it would be nice to like have that connection and to share, advice and, just have that communication and know that what you guys are doing on the ground.